afternoon. My name is Sean Shaw, and this is Vanguards of Democracy. Today's guests have each found their own way to make a profoundly positive impact on the lives of others, one through the church and the other through science. Vanguard Attorney's Scholarship for Philanthropic Efforts recipient, Milin J. Kurup, was nice enough to take time away from his studies to talk about the amazing contributions he has made to improving the treatment of epilepsy and other neurological disorders, all before his journey into medical school has even begun. But you'll really want to hear us argue about Jordan versus LeBron. But first, I'm here with Dr. Mark Jones Sr., founding pastor at the Center for Manifestation, to learn about the faith-based programs targeting education, employment, housing, and other forms of self-betterment here in Tampa. That interview starts right now, so stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of Vanguards of Democracy here with Sean, and I'm happy to be here with, I was talking a little background with one of the pastors here in the Tampa area that I have a lot of respect for because he walks it like he talks it, so to speak, as the Migos would say, and that is my friend, Dr. Mark Jones, founding pastor of Center for Manifestation. How are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing exceptionally well.
I appreciate you coming here. We were talking, first of all, your church is a huge part of the community, not just in size, but in terms of just how it fits into the community. You were talking about y'all are getting some other buildings and doing some other things. Talk about, let me start from the beginning. How did you get on this path to where you are now? How did it start? How did it get there?
Reluctantly. Yeah. I spent all my life literally from 19 to now almost 52 in business. I was a business manager. I didn't want a pastor. And so I assisted my pastor. I was his assistant and runner and driving him around and such and such. And so it was a calling. I mean, I was literally called. My life was interrupted. My plans were canceled. And so I just sort of divinely aligned with something that was planned for me before my first birthday.
Let me ask about that. When was the calling? How did it happen?
Initially I was 22, 23 when I was first called to pastor. But to pastor my own church, it was around about 29 years old at that time.
And you started this you the founding pastor. You started this. How did it start?
We started with 20 people in a storefront garage, literally a garage with a salon up front and 20 people who were just crazy enough to believe that we would do something significant.
How'd you grow it? This is always fascinating to me. Like how you got to see a vision before anybody else sees it. And you saw what's on Lake before anyone else saw it. How'd you get people to come with you? And how'd you grow it?
Well, we started there with the garage, and in 6 months we were out of space. And someone walked in, handed me a flyer. We moved to our first little A-frame church. 1 year later, we were out of space. We moved to Lake Avenue because someone told me about the property being available. And so it's sort of just a flow that happened. I can't say that I made it happen. I caught wind of what was happening and just sort of flowed with it. And really what grew our ministry is transforming lives, meeting the needs in the community, doing missions all over the world. It really was people could look in their Bible and look in their church and see the same thing.
Talk about that a little bit. Some churches are top down. Some churches are bottom up. You are a meeting people where they are and transforming lives. Talk about that a little bit of your church vision or what you see as your role as a founding pastor.
Well, my job is to equip leaders. I literally pastor leaders. And so it's all about raising people up to their potential. I never intended to grow our church. My focus has always been developing people to experience their potential.
And that's probably why your church grew, Doctor.
Yeah. It literally, all of these years, I've never had a leadership meeting or a pastoral meeting say, hey, we're going to grow the church. But I found that when you transform lives, then that is the greatest form of advertisement. People tell people how their lives are transformed.
And you've got a younger congregation than a lot of other churches around the area, right?
Well, my age, 50-something, so yeah.
I'm 44. We're talking young now. I'm no longer a young professional, brother. Yeah. But a lot of churches are you've heard this complaint in the in the community. A lot of churches have older congregations. You have a younger congregation. I think it's because you're meeting people where they are.
We have a lot of millennials,
Yeah.
a lot of millennials,
That's rare.
a lot of young couples. We've married a lot of young couples. So yeah, that age group that most people seem to complain about
Right.
pastoring, they flock to me for
Yeah.
some reason.
What times are your services?
We have a 8 a.m. service,
Right.
8 to 10:30 on Sunday morning, and a 10:30 to 1:30-ish.
Nah, listen, hang on. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that now.
Ish.
Yeah, ish.
And then Wednesday night, we have a 6:30 service, but we're open 7 days a week.
I hear you. Talk about some of the, other than Sunday. Everybody thinks church is Sunday. Pastor does a sermon on Sunday and that's it. Talk about the other things that you do. Particularly, I want to hear about the other ministries and the things you're doing to reach people.
Well, our city vision is Manifestation City. So my vision is to create 200 jobs in the city of Tampa. So right now we have over 40 that are on staff presently. So we're working to create jobs. The second element is affordable housing.
That I want to talk about.
We had that vision for affordable housing before it was $1,600 to rent a 1-bedroom. I mean, we just knew this would be problematic for people in this city that's growing. So we're working on affordable housing, and that comes in the form of we have an elderly men's home, we have a group home, women's home, we have an assisted living facility. We're building 10 apartments for veterans, a tiny home village. So many different mediums. We bought a property that we used for years for female ex-felons coming out of prison so that they would not, reoffend. And so the affordable housing piece has been huge to us. Spiritual training, of course, and then education. So we have a high school there on the campus, a child care center there, and 4 centers now actually. And then we also have a college. And just this year, we're actually starting our kindergarten through the 8th grade portion as well. So a lot of those 4 focuses have been just the headstream of what we've been focusing on.
I want to talk about that a little bit. I love the location of your church because there's a huge need in that community. That's an intersection that people talk about when they are talking about the part of Tampa that needs improvement. And I love the fact that you're right there and doing all these wonderful things and expansion and all that. What drives you? What determines what you do, what programs you do? Like why the assisted living facility, or why what is it? How do you figure out the need?
Yeah, discernment. I mean, it really is about, vision is about discerning the needs and meeting them. So it really is discerning why we were planted. I don't believe we just started a church there. I believe we were inserted strategically to meet needs. I often say we're an oasis in the hood because, as you know,
Yeah.
we're sandwiched between 2 housing projects. And so it's not just that, but we also, I don't know if we talked about this, but we've actually done missions all over the world from East Tampa. So it's really discerning the needs and then crafting strategy to utilize the gifts of the people of faith to meet the needs of the community.
Bingo. Now you said before that you don't have a strategy to grow. It's just growing because people are coming. What's the next thing to do? What do you got next coming up? What else is on the horizon?
Right now, we have a plan that we're working on. We rezoned a property there at 3110 Lake Avenue for 10 apartments. These are just focusing on serving the veterans of our communities. It's a big problem with vets and housing needs. So we're currently working through the engineering phases with the fire system and the building phases in order to put it all together on a plan to get our building permit. So that's the current project, is meeting that need. We're currently looking to raise about $525,000 in order to build those spaces out mortgage free. That's what we're working on right now. Tiny homes for vets.org is where we are with that.
Do you collaborate with any organizations, any other grassroots organizations or people in Tampa?
Absolutely.
And if so, yeah, let me know.
Yeah, we have partnerships with Metropolitan Ministries. We do a lot of the Feeding America stuff over at 30th there. We have a feeding program called the Empowerment House, where we feed and clothe and pay light bills and utility bills if people need it through our resource center. So we work with, the local grassroots organizations that are really helping to make sure, particularly, that the basic needs are being met.
I want to shift gears and ask you a question about who you let speak in your church, because I love to ask pastors this, because as a recovering politician, who you let speak, if you let speak, is it's an honor when the shepherd allows you to address their flock. I always thought that if a pastor let me get up. What is your policy on allowing politicians to come in and address your congregation? And why do you do it that way?
I typically don't. Most of those who address our congregation are the leaders of our congregation. I really do believe that our focus really is to teach people, how they should see things from a worldview. But I walk a real fine line on, seeming to endorse someone, because, as you know, it's not ours to endorse anyone. It's to tell our people how to vote and what issues they should be looking for. But for the most part, those who speak to our congregation are the leaders of our congregation.
And as someone that pastors and has been here and that is the leader of such a large congregation, I know a lot of politicians come to you and say, Dr. Jones, I'd love to have your support. Let me talk to you. Let me meet with you. How do you discern who the right person is or who the good person is in this political structure we got?
Fruit don't lie. I mean, I have had politicians come and say, hey, here is an issue. They can talk to an issue, and say, here's the issue. Here's why we need you to get out and vote. But really, it's those who the fruit don't lie. And if you've seen a track record of meeting needs and addressing the issues that matter to people and, the holistic well-being of families, then that's basically how we decide.
That's the same way I determine who I'm supporting. You've already done it. Like, I don't support new people or people that have no record, because that's not how this works, I don't think. You talked about the next chapter a little bit. Do you work with any corporations, or are there business partners that you have too that are interested? We have a good corporate culture here in Tampa, I think. And I know there's a lot of corporations that want to do good, and sometimes they don't know how to do it. You got any corporate partners that you work with and
we've
looking
been
forward to?
Yeah, we've been wonderfully supported by people like Spectrum. Spectrum has given us grants. We also, of course, we work with CDC. I'm currently working with Ernest.
The CDC of East Tampa,
who
was on this show just two segments ago. We had Chloe Coney on here. So
really?
Good, yes.
That's my spiritual mother.
Oh, good.
That's my spiritual mother.
Okay.
So we work with individuals such as that. Same mind. Even though we're the church, we have the same mind for our community. This is a season where we really are branching out more to connect to corporate partners and such, but it hasn't been over the last 20 years. It hasn't been much of a focus, as is just our people getting behind the vision.
Which they've gotten behind. I want to wrap it up. I want to ask you, there's a lot of pastors here in Tampa. Who do you look up to? Or who are some pastors in the community that you believe are worthy of lifting up?
Well, my number one inspiration is my spiritual father, Dr. David Boyd at Harvest Time Ministries. I look to him to make sure that I have someone to whom I answer. But we got some really great guys. I mean, Pastor Tommy out at Crossover is doing a phenomenal job. I love him. He's a really great pastor. I also, Pastor Anthony Brown, who is now at Without Walls, seems to be gaining some traction and doing some really great things. So we got a number of I have a number of pastors that I looked up to, like my dear friend from Bible Base, Pastor Jones. We were good friends, and I thank God for Abe Brown and those who have left a legacy. I really looked. As a matter of fact, I met with people like Abe Brown before they passed. I was inspired to meet with them to see what was left.
Right.
And so those conversations with Abe Brown and Jones and the pillars of the community from a spiritual standpoint, Bishop James Howell, of course, I was with Bishop Howell for years before Started Manifestation. I look to some of the older, more established individuals that have been here and were plowing the ground. They've done really great work.
I'm going to ask you one final question, and it is one that I hear somewhat, particularly from younger people, and it's, where is the church with our problems now? Where's the black church? Clearly, when the civil rights movement, it was rooted in the church. Dr. King obviously was a pastor. Where is the church now? People, I think, would try to make the argument it's not at the forefront like it was in the civil rights movement. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't believe we have an activist church. as much as it did when Dr. King was, leading in that segment. I believe we have more of an empowerment church. For example, I believe that we can educate ourselves and develop ourselves and our strategies to a place where we circle our wealth, where we own, like now.
Yes.
We own 14 properties in East Tampa. Ownership is empowerment. We work for ourselves. We circle our wealth. See, that's the current move, I believe, of those who really have their pulse on what the church should be doing, is empowering people to rise above the statistics and to be the examples and pillars of the community.
That's why I love when you were talking about buying buildings and doing things and not just going to government and asking, like, we're going to buy this building and we're going to make this a corporate center. We're going to make this alternative housing because that's what we need to do and figure out a way to do it.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
Well, brother, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I've watched you and I appreciate your answer on the politicians thing, because there's no right answer to that, because it's hard because we always trying to get in there, and and some of your friends or some ain't, and some people tell you don't let them. And I appreciate, because it's no right answer, but I appreciate. I always like to ask pastors that I respect what their stance is, because some say absolutely not, and some say anybody can. And then there's some in the middle. So I appreciate that. So next time I'll be sure I need to speak on one thing and you let me in. Because that's what I heard. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. Man. I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Vanguards of Democracy. I'm your host, Sean Shaw. I'm honored to be here. Today is a really cool episode. We're talking with someone who is super impressive. And when you hear these credentials and you hear this story, you're going to be as impressed as I am. First off, who we're talking to is the winner of the Vanguard Philanthropic Efforts Scholarship. It used to be the Sopradante Scholarship, but now it is the Vanguard Philanthropic Efforts Scholarship. And as a law firm, we specialize in helping survivors and helping people. And the awarding of this scholarship is in that vein. But I want to talk about what you have to apply for the scholarship. And then I'm going to tell you who we've got in the studio who's the most recent recipient of the scholarship. You got to have a 3.0 or higher. You have to be seeking an undergraduate or advanced degree. And you've got to provide an essay answering the question, how does your field of study positively impact the lives of people with a disability? Plus a personal statement describing how and why you choose to give back to the community. So it's not just have a 4.0 and get a scholarship. This is a meaningful scholarship in which that you've got to describe to us how you're giving back and why you're giving back, essentially. And so it's really cool that we're going to talk to the recipient of that award. And I'm here with Milin today. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm honored to be here with you. I read your background, and let me tell you something. You've just graduated college, right?
Yeah, I just graduated.
When I graduated college, I didn't even have that much stuff to talk about. I had a major, and that was about it. And so this is really impressive. I want you, if you can, just to talk about your background a little bit. Talk about where you grew up, where you went to high school, why you decided to go to the outstanding university that you decided to go to, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Tampa, Florida. I was born in Clearwater. I grew up in Pinellas and Hillsborough County, and now I'm current South Tampa resident. I went to Robinson High School right here in South Tampa and was part of the International Baccalaureate program. So, and while in the program, I was very active in science and math mainly like scientific research. And I was very interested in like doing institutional research at like University of South Florida here in Tampa and the University of Florida, where I started to enroll in my senior year of high school. So once I got some experience doing institutional research at the University of Florida, I got accepted the following year, and I continued my research and continued my studies at the University of Florida, which I currently just graduated with a degree in microbiology and neurology.
We're going to get there. And if anyone is watching this show, if you're one of our audience members, you know we have favorites on this show. And one of the favorites is the University of Florida Go Gators. Science and math, how did you get interested there? Were you just good at it? Were you just interested in it, or both?
It's a mixture of both. I mean, from a young age, I was always interested in science, and we're going to talk about some of my inspirations maybe later on in this podcast, and some of my inspirational motivators kind of.
Well, talk about that now. Talk about who inspired you in science and math.
Well, I'll first go with my mom, who is a pharmacist, and her vast knowledge in science and her vast knowledge in both science and medicine altogether inspired me, because she would always pass down knowledge to me. I would look into her books sometimes, and it sparked a curiosity at a young age. Later on, other inspirational factors such as my experiences in the hospital with my doctors also inspired me, because I was diagnosed with epilepsy, which we were also going to talk about later, and diagnosed with epilepsy, and the doctors that helped me through the process of combating epilepsy, and then how they cured me altogether, inspired me, because I want to go back and give back to the community that helped me grow, who helped me altogether. Like,
we are definitely going to get there, because that's key to your journey and to your inspiration and to what you're doing now. Any other family members involved in medicine?
Not really. It's really just my mom in pharmacy. There are no doctors in my family. I hope to be the first.
Wonderful. I also read you got some awards already. Talk about some of the, because it's important. Because you're a recent graduate of college, and I just can't emphasize enough how impressive your resume is right now, and that's really cool. Talk about some of the awards that you've already kind of received.
So one of the big ones was when I got invited to the International STEM Science and Engineering Fair in Pittsburgh, where I was one of the finalists for my institutional research on traumatic brain injury and neurologic disorders. Being able to go to like the Pittsburgh International Science and Engineering Fair was a big award and recognition, because I was with thousands of young scientists like me, and I got to see them from around the world, and I got to see that I'm part of like a community there. That was one of the major ones. That's when I started to gain my recognition at the University of Florida as a young scientist, and where I started to gain the respect of my mentors and supervisors.
I bet you already had that respect. What? Tell me your majors again.
So it was microbiology and neuroscience.
Okay, wow. Wow. I mean, you're taking for granted how impressive all that stuff is. And I just want to tell you, it's inspiring to someone that was terrible at math, terrible at science, and the minute I could get out of it, I did. What's next for you academically? You're a recent graduate of the University of Florida. Again, go Gators. What's next?
So my goal is to go to med school, and I hope to carry my knowledge of what I've done in my research and kind of go in and hopefully become the pediatric neurologist that I hope to become. So that is my end goal. I don't know what med school I'm going to yet, but I hope that I can bring a valuable asset to whichever med school that I do.
For people that don't know, including myself specifically, what's pediatric neurology?
Well, pediatric neurology is the focus of focus on the brain for young children, and I hope to. I want to learn more about neurologic disorders in young children, and how can we treat, diagnose, and cure some of these disorders, because I know how they can be a hindering factor for many young children.
But let's get into some of that. First, you've hit on this, but I want to get into it a little bit more. What do you consider yourself an advocate of?
So I'm an advocate of three major things. It's first off, scientific research and how it's linked to medicine, because my scientific research has helped impact the lives of a couple of people, which we hope to talk about. And I hope to incorporate that in my future. I hope to bring accessibility to young children, because I know that accessibility is hard even in a metropolitan area like Tampa, which I had experienced, because not everyone has the access to healthcare that they deserve. And I hope to increase the accessibility for young children and adults. And altogether, I hope to incorporate personalized care, because each individual is different, and having personalized medicinal care is critical, because although that we have these general physicians today, finding specialized care is really hard, and I want to make it accessible and innovative through research.
We touched on this as well, but I want to get into it now. What motivates you to serve the disabled? I know the answer, but I want you to tell our audience what motivates you to serve the disabled, and why do you want to impact the lives of others in this way?
Well, so it's a personal connection. I was diagnosed with epilepsy at a young age. It was a kind of a hindering factor on many instances, and I hope to reduce the chance of this hindrance on anyone else. And I hope that I can help the lives of children that have similar stories like me. Epilepsy can hinder you because it kind of reduces your focus, and it can um, make you go through like events that like you cannot control your actions. And through these experiences, I don't want anyone else to face what I had to face, because it would hinder some of my dreams, such as my further education and some of my hobbies and some things that I like specifically.
And it was hard to find the right care, I assume, and I bet it impacted you academically. Talk about some of that.
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, first off, how it like impacted me. While I was diagnosed during a basketball game where I collapsed, and during this incident, I just fell asleep, or like I had lost consciousness for like 3 to 4 minutes, what I assumed. However, when we rushed to the hospital, we were all worried. Well, what was the incident? Why was I collapsed? And the doctors had diagnosed me with epilepsy, and epilepsy, they said, would have I would have these seizure events, and I would not know when these would occur, and I would not be aware of when they would occur. So they would occur infrequently, and they would occur like out of the blue. So what we had to do was find a way to kind of suppress the epileptic events. And one thing that they did was they first put me on medication, but the medication would not suppress it. So they needed to find alternative ways. And finally, they went through brain surgery. And this was a very scary, daunting task for me. And that's one of my inspirations. My surgeon, Dr. Valley, told me that after the surgery, you'll be completely normal. You can be able to do anything. And I kind of wanted to emphasize that once I come out of the surgery, I can go and do anything. And I want to become a physician just like him, saving lives now, because I've been able to go through that surgery.
You still talk to him?
Yeah, sometimes
That's cool. That is. And after the surgery, did it go away and it cured it completely?
Yeah, so it's completely gone. It's like eradicated from me. And I'm happy that I'm able to do the stuff that I love to do, because basketball, for example, going in and out for like 6 months after the diagnosis, after the surgery, I was not able to play basketball anymore. I was not able to focus in my education as much. But even then, I tried to bounce back and really endured. But I'm just saying, it was a very hindering factor at the moment, and it was hard for me and my family. So having someone like Dr. Valley who supported me through the process, and then telling me that I can do anything, it kind of proved that, it kind of instilled that determination and perseverance that I.
What other hobbies do you have? Basketball was a hobby of mine before I got to 40 and I needed to lower the impact on my joints. What are your hobbies?
Well, so basketball is the main one outside of education. Scientific research is another, and I do like to play the cello. I'll say that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Basketball, the cello, and scientific stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. That's impressive, man. How'd you get? I read this and it stuck out at me. How did you get 1,000 hours of clinical scientific work?
Yeah. So starting in high school, right after my surgery, like although it was a struggle to get back into the grind of focusing and becoming who I wanted to become, I was striving to do neurologic research. I always had the innate curiosity: what caused my epilepsy? What is the cause of neurologic disorders altogether? How can I help cure, and how can I contribute to my scientific community? Because even before the surgery, I was involved in scientific research. Now I had a sole purpose to get involved in neurotrauma work. And so I went to the University of Florida. I enrolled in a program called the Student Science and Training Program and the Neuroproteomics, Neurotrauma, and Biomarker Research Program in my senior year of high school, going into my senior year of high school. And I was enrolling at UF doing this research. And there I gained the respect of my mentors who helped train me in scientific research. And they started my my experiences in just neurotrauma work. And so later on, after I was able to conduct experiments, they gave me the opportunity to present at many national presentations, such as the International Science and Engineering Fair. And I also was able to publish many publications because they let me be an author and write about what I did on the paper.
I mean, I'm going to ask you a basic question, but what does this research entail?
Yeah. So to be specific, this research started off on how can we cure and how can we diagnose and treat traumatic brain injury? We do not have a cure for traumatic brain injury and post-trauma conditions, but we want to find a way to treat it, and we want to be able to diagnose it fast. Because for me, myself, the incident occurred out of nowhere. We do not know when it will occur, and it can occur from a young age like me, and it can become an onset problem like Alzheimer's for older people. And it's a growing incident in our society today. So I want to be able, our research is to find a way to diagnose it fast and quick. So one of the things that we do is we create different models, mice models, animal models, human models, multiple models, and we see how can we take like body serum, like blood or brain samples or anything, something non-intravenous as much as possible, and then test it to see what level of severity of traumatic brain injury they have. So we were able to do this with, like, for example, blood serum, and we were able to test the protein biomarkers inside the blood and then see how does the concentrations correlate to the level of severity of traumatic brain injury.
And it did?
Yes, and we have found multiple papers, and we've published multiple papers showing the impact of how these protein biomarkers are great indications. Even at like 1 hour, after 1 hour after injury, we can see, do they have like concussion, severe traumatic brain injury, moderate to severe, and moderate, mild, and everything. And we were able to use like these fast biomarker diagnostic tools to predict what will be the outcome for these patients. And we're doing this at like fast speeds, and we're hoping that this will progress and help us in future diagnostics and treatments.
I want to talk about that. Philips MiniCare diagnostic tool. Talk about that some.
Yeah. So that is the tool that we developed. I was part of the investigation process, like collecting the samples and testing the protein biomarkers and testing the concentrations. And then one of the engineers on our team helped to develop the Philips MiniCare diagnostic tool, which can now take blood samples and kind of monitor the levels of proteins that are fluctuating in the body, and then kind of see what level of severity of traumatic brain injury they're facing or what neurologic condition they may have in the future. And hopefully innovations like this can carry on and continue to develop to help us personalize medicine, like my objective.
I want to again emphasize to our viewers, he just graduated college. What were you doing when you graduated college? Not coming up with a diagnostic tool, I bet. That's really impressive. Tell me, why do you believe philanthropy is important in your field?
Yeah, so the field of medicine is all about generosity and giving back to those that need help. And as a community and as a leader in our community, physicians need to be able to be the strong figure that can help the community for reasons, because they always need a shoulder to lean on, and we need to be that shoulder that they can lean on, because physicians need to help those that are vulnerable at some points in their life. And everyone will go through some medical situation at some point in their life, but a neurologic condition can be even more drastic, right? And it's very hard for us to control what might go on in a neurologic condition. But as a patient myself and a future physician, I want to be able to ease the comfort for other people, say that I've been there, I know what it feels like to be in that situation, and say it's okay, you'll be better. And I want to see that impact that I can make on other people.
In our society, there's not people that are more trusted than physicians, and it's really important that that remains that way, and that, as you say, that philanthropy maintains its presence there, so you maintain that stature in our community. What do you hope to do in the future? Like, what are we doing? You talked about getting to med school. Where after that? What do you want to be doing?
So my goal is to become a neurologic, pediatric
Right.
neurologist. I hope.
How long will that take?
It's going to be a long journey.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long.
Med school's 4 years.
Med school's 4 years.
What's after?
Residency is 4 years,
Right.
4 to 6 years, and then there's a 2 years of post, like fellowship. So it's
you have 6 to 8 years after med school before you will be practicing.
Yes, but I'm happy to take that journey, because I just know that that whole time will be a bunch of experiences that I will cherish. It will develop me as who I want to become, and it will help me become the doctor that I hope to become, because I've seen, after shadowing multiple physicians, after working in the clinic, after working in the hospital, seeing how the physicians like run their practices, I know that that long period of time is necessary in order for them to just develop to who they are. And
where do you want to practice? Any idea? I mean, that's a long time, but
I mean, it would be amazing if I could just come back to Tampa General Hospital, where Dr. Valley helped me, where I had my surgery. It would be cool if I could come right back to Tampa and do where it all started, that would be amazing. But I mean, the future is open.
If you're here in 10 years, I'm coming to you no matter what problem I have. You're impressive. I don't care if it's neurology or what. What advice would you give to someone who's currently going through perhaps a similar situation, not exact, but similar, with your diagnosis while working and going to school? Because you told me it was academic issues. It was issues affecting just your general way of life, even non-academic. What advice do you give that person?
I mean, it would be just to keep going. It's always to just always persevere. Determination is key. I mean, there was times in that hospital where I would be doing my homework in the hospital. The nurses would be making fun of me saying, come on, you need to rest. Like, stop studying right now because you need to just take a rest. I get the
sense that that's your way of relaxing.
It is my way of relaxing. It's like a safe haven to me because, to be honest, it takes my mind off of what's going on in life. It's just you're studying. It's kind of a way. And if you enjoy anything in life, that's another thing I would want to say. If you enjoy anything in life, it won't be work if you're enjoying it. So, I mean, basketball, studies, I mean, becoming a doctor, anything you want to become, if you enjoy doing it, you'll persevere and you're determined to just do it. And that's one thing that I want to emphasize to everyone.
Where do you play basketball? Just gym pickup?
I mean, so right now I play for I mean, now that I graduated, I don't play anymore, but I did play for the UF club team and the UF intramural league. So that's where I did most of my basketball at UF. Over here in Florida and Tampa, I played for my high school basketball team, Robinson, and coached and played at the CSU, Court Supreme University basketball organization.
That's
in
a lot. That's not just pickup games. All right.
Yeah.
What about the cello? Did you take lessons or how'd you pick that one?
So cello, I started in middle school with my teacher, Miss Scott Garrison, and she inspired me to keep playing the cello. I currently do not play the cello in college. I will say that I stopped in high school, but that was a key interest that I had in high school where I participated in my high school orchestra. I went to county levels, and that was just another fun extracurricular I did on the side.
I'm going to dig around a little bit on the weekends. Other than basketball, are you doing anything non-academic?
I mean, I love to watch SEC football. Go Gators.
Well, listen. I got you. That's where I wanted to go. That's okay. Gator sports, obviously. So if you're like me, your night's ruined if we happen to lose. We happen to win. It's a good night. You going out? Where are you going? You doing karaoke? You're going to the bar, or what are you doing?
I mean, we just party at home, to be honest.
I got you.
We just watch our games. We have fun. I mean, that's my...
Listen, if it's a win, it's always fun. If it's a loss, don't call me. What's a famous person that you would have liked to meet, would have liked to even be a mentor, be a mentor to you?
Just a famous person that would be a mentor to myself.
Yeah.
I mean,
or even just a famous person you want to meet.
I mean, I'll say the truth, honest answer, because I'm a basketball player, it would be LeBron James.
Nice.
And that's because his work ethic, his perseverance, and his motivation, he motivated me outside of education. Because what he could do on the basketball court kind of paralleled to what I could do in my field of
We're going to ask you the most serious question I've asked you to date. Jordan or LeBron?
This is
hey man, you've been talking about all this really tough stuff. Let's go.
This is a debate that we have every day.
You don't know where I am. You assume because of my age where you think I am, and you're probably right. But you're a LeBron person, I bet, right?
Yes, I am.
It's close. It's a debate at least, which I think speaks to LeBron's where he's gotten. I've never seen someone with so much hype live up to it. LeBron did. And it was the championship when he beat Golden State that I thought he passed Kobe. And now we're talking about Jordan and LeBron.
Yeah, so that championship was the year that I had just undergone brain surgery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, if he can come back from a 3-1 deficit,
nice.
I can come back from
That's cool,
anything.
Man. That's cool. Never been done before?
Nope, never been done before. And I want to become the physician after going.
And treat what happened.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's see what else. What's something you could eat for a week straight? You're a college student. It's going to be an easy answer, I bet.
I mean, to be honest, I'm a cook.
Nice.
I know how to cook.
In college?
In college.
Yeah, what are you cooking?
I mean, I can cook, pasta, fried rice,
right.
Enchiladas, tacos,
okay, you're some kind of weird college student that knows how to cook and studies and does all this stuff, right?
But, I mean, my roommates, they all eat ramen all Oh, weeks.
Yeah,
So
that was the right answer, by the way. That's the only question where you didn't get it right. It's the right answer is ramen. But no, I just it's always interesting to ask college students that, because I think to my college experience and wasn't nobody cooking. Let me ask you this last question, because this is interesting. If you were given the opportunity to fly into space with today's technology, would you take it?
I mean, yeah, if I'm physically able to, I would love to go to space with today's technology. I'm sure we're able to do. I'm not scared to
You're not
do
scared of
anything.
the technology?
I'm not scared.
Okay. Man, I just want to tell you, you're inspiring to a lot of people, me included now. Once I read your background, I knew this was going to be great, but I can't wait to see where you end up in 5 years, and 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. For your struggles to lead you to do what you want to do is the best story you could possibly have. And that's why your career is going to be so amazing, but it's going to be so fulfilling to you. So I want to congratulate you on winning the scholarship. Thank you for coming here, and go Gators.
Go Gators.
Thanks, man. Welcome to the news wrap here. And today, this week has been a super busy week as it relates to the news. In fact, hours ago, if that, the Florida legislature just passed in its special session, just passed Governor DeSantis's preferred congressional map. If you remember, Governor DeSantis called the legislature back to special session. He didn't like the maps that they had drawn for congressional districts here in Florida. He wanted to make it more partisan. That means more Republican. He also wanted to make it less black. He succeeded in both. And so that map just passed hours ago, but it was not without controversy. The Black Caucus led a protest on the floor of the Florida House of Representatives and essentially shut down the House for a few hours. And clearly the protest was meant to draw attention to the fact that the map was blatantly trying to reduce the number of black congressional seats here in Florida. And if you don't know the history of black congressional seats in Florida, and if you believe that we don't need them, then you ought to read a little something called the Voting Rights Act and look back at the history of the oppression and the suppression of the black vote and understand why those districts are important. And so the eradication or the diminishment of two of those districts, one in the Jacksonville, Leon County, North Florida area, one in the Orange County area, led to those protests on the floor today. And in fact, right before I came into the studio, I was kind of watching that protest unfold and on Twitter and on the Florida channel, and it was invigorating to watch those members of the House of Representatives to protest. But it was also sad because we all knew what the outcome was going to be. And that outcome ultimately was that the legislature caved to the governor's request for a new map. So here we are. We will be subject to some lawsuits, I bet. I don't know what the timeline of those lawsuits will be. It's important because qualifying for these congressional races is coming up pretty soon. And so will the court act in time to do something before the elections come? We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but there's a couple well-knowns, and that's that the legislature and the governor just passed maps that are less Democratic and less black. There was another thing that happened this week that is like peak Florida. Peak Florida, man. We passed this prohibition on anything related to critical race theory here in Florida because that's what Florida does. We're kind of the best at being the worst. But what just happened specifically is we banned a bunch of math books because they ran afoul of the prohibition on critical race theory. Can you tell me how a math book will contain things in it that are subject to the prohibition on critical race theory? How does a math book indoctrinate our kids into thinking something is un-American? How does a math book promote black over white, which is what they're trying to ban, I assume, with the prohibition of critical race theory things? How do they do that? The only fraction in the history of America that I'm aware of that was racist was when I was known as 3/5 of a man. And y'all figure that out when you're on the way home. But 3/5, I was once only referred to as 3/5 of a person because I'm black. That's the only critical race theory related item in math that I'm aware of. But we have prohibited 54 out of 132 textbook submissions. What's that? A third of all math books are now banned because they violate critical race theory prohibitions. What? If you believe that's as silly as I do, then I'm glad you're with me, because I don't understand that. Even thinking from their weird point of view, I don't know how math book violates the prohibition on critical race theory. For all of you all that hated wearing your mask while you were flying, you should be happy. A federal judge struck down the mask mandate in airports here recently. And so you do, as of right now, you don't have to wear a mask. I don't know if the Department of Justice is going to appeal that ruling. I'm told they might. I'm told that the CDC is suggesting that they appeal that ruling. But as of right now, I don't think you have to wear a mask in an airport and on an airplane. Now, let me just say this. Just because you're not legally required to do something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? Okay, let's give that some thought. And lastly, we're also at war with Disney here in this state. Yes, the headquarters of Disney is mad at Disney. So if you remember the legislature in their infinite desire to do trash stuff, they passed a bill that essentially is known as the Don't Say Gay bill. And the bill was essentially meant to prohibit people from talking about gender, from talking about transit, from talking about anything that makes someone feels uncomfortable about gender, I guess. That's what it was meant to do. It's known as the Don't Say Gay bill. Disney took a position against that bill. And the legislature got so mad at Disney that someone would dare to take a position against them that they are part of the special session this week was to punish Disney and to take away some of their preferred statutory provisions that they have, protections that they have in Florida. So Disney was punished simply for taking a position against the legislature. Now, the legislature, and when I say the legislature, I mean the Republican-led legislature, because those are the ones who are mad at Disney, and the Democrats don't have power to do nothing. So when I say the legislature, I mean the Republican-led legislature. And it's Republicans who I thought were against being woke. It's Republicans I thought that were against cancel culture. It was Republicans who I thought had named Florida the free state of Florida. It's Republicans who I thought believed in capitalism above all else. They violated all four of those premises by punishing Disney. And I think Disney is the #1 private employer in the state of Florida. I also know that no corporation is associated with the state and this country like Disney is associated with Florida. Florida runs on tourism. So we are essentially biting our economic nose to spite our face. But that's what happens when you govern from a obnoxious point of view like we do here in Florida, and you don't practice what you preach. So here we are. That's the news. It's been a very active news cycle. I know more is happening as we speak. There may be another special session next month on property insurance. There may or may not be. We don't know. But that's the news we got this week. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. Vanguards of Democracy is funded and produced by Vanguard Attorneys, a local personal injury law firm serving the Tampa Bay area with ingenuity and an indomitable work ethic. Don't forget to follow Vanguards of Democracy on YouTube or download episodes on your favorite podcast streaming services like iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And lastly, we're excited to announce that we're launching our new landing page, www.vanguardsofdemocracy.com, where you'll be able to ask questions, recommend guests or topics, and stay up to date with news and announcements. It'll be great. If you know how to bookmark a website, this is the one that'll make it worth it. Thank you.